Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 2021 My Driver Career Mode here on the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. Today we head to my home GP here, the Canadian GP at Montreal. I'm very excited for this one, and this is a big episode. I feel like we really need to step it up today and put the fight to Daniel Ricciardo, as we have struggled to do so. Ricciardo, so far in every race that he has finished, he has won. And we've been, second to him every single time, it feels like. So we need to step it up here today in Canada, because we're not going to win a World Drivers' Championship finishing behind our teammate every single race episode that Ricciardo at least finishes in. So here in our home GP, we're looking to make a statement here in practice, actually. We had George Russell in the Alpine crash out of practice here through the wall of champions. It's actually going to kind of bite him here now. As you can see, he got a little bit sideways trying to avoid it, overcorrected into the wall he went, and well, that was the end of his day. But we actually topped free practice one at the top of the board, about 3.5 tenths above our teammate of Daniel Ricciardo there. So there were some positives heading into qualifying, but this is going to be an interesting episode because we have rain in qualifying, and in the race it's going to be a dry start. But it is going to rain later in the race for the second time this season, and for the second season in a row in the Canadian GP, we will be facing rain. So in Q1, I actually waited to the end of the session to make a lap, because earlier in the session it was full white conditions, but by the end of the session it was just simply intermediate conditions. So I went out and made 2 laps, went to the top of the board, very, very fast lap here, but then I make it through into Q2, but we make a heartbreaking discovery. I simply forgot to change out parts that were very, very worn. So we might have advanced into Q2, but I realized that the odds of us finishing this GP decreased quite a bit here with the way some of these parts were looking, and I didn't want to risk it in my home GP. So I ended up not making a lap in Q2, and instead I swap out the engine. So unfortunately, we take a grid penalty, and suddenly we're going to be starting at the very back of the Canadian GP, and just a heartbreaking error from myself. Let's head to the grid.
Bonjour! It's time once again to go racing here in Montreal, the second largest French-speaking city in the world, and home since 1978 to the Canadian Grand Prix. It's one of the fastest races of the season here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with around 60% of this 2.7-mile circuit taken at full throttle. There are 14 corners to navigate, the very last of which has its very own infamous history, could be the cause of a safety car today. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat, Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching for as they go down into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Pierre Gasly lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo and Hamilton, Leclerc, Giovinazzi, Vettel and George Russell, Sainz, Ocon, and Guan Yu Zhou and Latifi, Eilert, Verstappen, Christian Lundgaard and Mick Schumacher, Stroll and the Golden Boy. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
So then, getting ready to go green lights out here in Canada. Now, as you can see, the weather at the top. So I actually decided to start on the medium compound tire and hope that I can take these medium compound tires all the way to the rain, and then the track gets wet and my first pit stop will be onto an intermediate compound, while everybody else will have to make one pit stop already before the rain comes, and that way everyone makes a pit stop. We do not here now, as one mistake forgetting to change parts in the engine puts us at the back of the grid with a huge fight ahead here now, as it's going to be lights out, and we are underway in the Canadian GP. Up here, Gasly, Lando Norris, Lewis, Hamilton, Bottas, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, all up there in the mix as they head down into turn 1. Ricciardo did not have a good Q3. He is multiple rows back now, and he has his work cut out for him, which is perfect for myself here now. But we have to be on the move straight away in this Canadian GP if we want to have any opportunity now. As you can see, Ricciardo already ahead of Yuki Tsunoda here now, as everyone already starting to settle out now. As you can see, Hamilton, Bottas, they are just in front of Ricciardo now, but there is Pierre Gasly leading the way on this opening lap there. Just in the background, you can see it's actually Mercedes that has gotten up into second place of Valtteri Bottas now, as Hamilton was actually behind Tsunoda, I should correct there, as you continue to see wing to diffuser racing here now as we come through these second and towards the third sector in this Montreal circuit. Now, as you can see, myself, I was kind of following Max Verstappen here. Verstappen started at the back with myself. He actually missed Q2. I forgot to highlight that, and it wasn't because of any situation where he forgot to change parts. He just downright made a mistake, I guess, and missed Q2. So we were now in the back with them here, as you see Gasly coming through to lead the first and opening lap of this Canadian GP, and I myself and Max Verstappen are trying to work our way through this traffic as best as we can. I gained 3 spots on the opening start here as we move up into P17. Verstappen looking for an opportunity to pass the fellow Canadian here of Nicholas Latifi in that Porsche Williams. His opportunity didn't quite rise at the beginning of this lap, but here towards the end of the lap, he actually went around the outside of Latifi in the hairpin, and I'm going to try and follow through here right there on the back and then swing up to the left side and use the overtake button, and we are going to use that slipstream from Verstappen to pull us through. And this turned into a bit of a routine. Verstappen would go to the outside again of Callum Isla in the Audi, and then I would just basically try to come in and sweep past here moments later. Now, unfortunately, it didn't quite work out this lap. I actually had to back out and pass Isla right here on the exit of the final chicane down this front straightaway here, side by side with the Audi driver there, and we are going to move now up into 15th place here, and the routine would continue yet again. Verstappen would look to the outside of Zhou Guanyu here through the hairpin, and then once again, I'm just going to follow through once it goes around him. So far, we have some really solid pace in this McLaren Vodafone, and I'm pretty confident here in how this is going to work out for us with the strategy, because everybody in front of us has to pit likely before the rain, and I don't think I'm going to have to, and I might need to save a little bit of tire, but it shouldn't be too drastic here. Now, as you can see, I myself and Max Verstappen are now going to have a battle. We've used Verstappen to our advantage to pull us through the traffic, but now we're going to put the fight to him here now, side by side down into turn 1. We will get clear of Verstappen through turn 2, and then set our sights now on the back of the Alpine of Esteban Ocon here now, and it was just a matter of time until we were going to get to him and pass him. Now, as you can see, we were setting a blistering pace now, already up to P13 here in the Canadian GP. A great rebound, but Jeff comes over the radio, says rain in about 15 minutes here in Canada. So it's going to be interesting to see if we can hold on for that long with this medium compound tire. You see George Russell now comes into the pit lane himself in the Alpine there, teammates Esteban Ocon, and we would continue forwards now, setting the fastest lap of the GP, and we were running down the Monegascan of Charles Leclerc, who just won the Bahrain GP IRL yesterday. Congrats to him, as Gasly, the leader, comes into the pits, but behind, 3 wide with Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and Valtteri Bottas there, and there you see they all sorted out there, but Tsunoda sailed it off into that final chicane and destroyed his momentum, and opens the door again for the Australian teammate of ours of Daniel Ricciardo to lunge up the inside of Yuki Tsunoda down into turn 1. Nearly some contact there. Ricciardo up into second place. Lando Norris moves into the lead after Gasly pitting. Here comes Bottas now, gets the traction and the power down better here as they head into this next little right-left chicane there. You don't want to be side by side through there. It looked like there might have been a little bit of contact, but Bottas still comes out on top of that battle. Hamilton stays in behind Tsunoda there in the 5th position. Antonio Giovinazzi there in 6th place. Now, as that was happening, that whole situation, I myself was putting the pressure on the back of Charles Leclerc, and with DRS to my advantage, I would sweep right on past him here down into this final chicane, move up into P10, and then we would set our sights on the Spaniard of Carlos Sainz, and we would run him down just as quick as we had been running down everybody so far in this GP. As you continue to see up ahead, though, Tsunoda and Hamilton now scrapping it out, and everybody up there is battling and slowing themselves down, which is perfect for myself, who would get past Carlos Sainz because he had actually come into the pit lane at the conclusion of lap 9. So I'm up into P7, and I'm closing in on everybody right here in this little battle because, like I said, they're scrapping it out, elbows out, going at it wheel to wheel. They're bringing themselves towards me. So far, I don't think this race could go any better than it has been for the situation we found ourselves in here now, as by the time we come through to the end of lap 10, we are on that gearbox of our former car, now driven by Antonio Giovinazzi here, wheel to wheel into the chicane, and that was an aggressive move, but we stay within the track limits, and we take the position from Antonio Giovinazzi. Now you can see the cloud cover starting to come in on lap 13, as we're right on the gearbox of Lewis Hamilton. Daniel Ricciardo is going to come into the pit lane. Hamilton might be looking to come into the pit lane as well. Yes, he does. Tsunoda goes in. Bottas with a really weird final chicane opens the door wide open here for myself, who has the momentum to go around the inside here and we make the move and take now the lead of the Canadian GP. We lead our home GP, and now it is crucial to hang on to this set of tires until the rain comes here. Now, actually, you can see Mick Schumacher would have a mechanical failure in the Haas Maserati. He was out of the GP, but no safety car or virtual safety car. Still no safety car this season, which is crazy to think considering I have the safety car on the highest probability. As you can see though, Ricardo, he was on the soft compound tire setting the fastest laps of the race, and he was closing in on myself as well as Pierre Gasly, who pitted much earlier. He was now 4.3 seconds back, and I'm just hoping, I'm begging for that rain to fall anytime now here. As you can see now though, on lap 18, still no rain. Ricardo only 3.3 seconds back. Then Ricardo would pass Pierre Gasly, move up into second place, 2.3 seconds behind myself. The gap coming down quite quick, but we come through to lap 21, the rain finally falling. 1 second between myself and Ricardo, crucial to beat him here, especially in my home GP, to keep this battle for the championship alive and make a statement. Well, by the time we come through to lap 21, you can see just how quick the conditions had changed. The track was deteriorating at a very, very quick rate. I said, let's come into the pit lane this lap. So I tell Jeff we're boxing. Ricardo stays out, so he's going to do an extra lap here. Gasly is going to come into the pit lane and join myself, and we are going to come into our box and put on a set of intermediate compound tires. So the strategy has worked to perfection. We have gotten the lead in the Canadian GP by making one less pit stop, as Gasly, for some reason, just put on a second set of medium compound tires, not intermediates, medium compound tires. Norris has come in for the intermediates, but I don't know what Gasly was doing, but that's going to be a race-ending, race-costing decision there. They're not going to have a chance to win this GP, and now we're going to come through into this final chicane at the conclusion of lap 22. Ricardo now in the pit box, putting on the intermediate compound as well. Will we cycle out in front of him? The answer should be yes. We gained a little bit of time there on that lap that he had to spend out on the dry compound tires, and sure enough, we are ahead of our Australian teammate of Daniel Ricciardo, who has won every single race he has finished this season. You can see he's within the same frame shot as us, so Ricciardo is not far behind, and we are going to have a fight on our hands with Daniel Ricciardo here for the win in this Canadian GP. Now, as we're going to have to get those elbows out, but of course we can't overstep the boundaries here in these wet conditions as we run through this field. Carlos Sainz, Antonio Giovinazzi, Lewis Hamilton right now rounding out the top 10 as well. Charles Leclerc, Eilert battling it out right there with Esteban Ocon, but Eilert actually just now coming into the pit lane for an intermediate set of tires. But you can see Zhou Guanyu, Max Verstappen all the way down in 15th place. Not sure what put Max Verstappen back there, but not the GP he's looking for once again. He's having a bit of a rough start to this season here. As you can see, the rest of the order with Lance Stroll, a fellow Canadian, at the bottom of the grid in the Haas Maserati here. As we continue though in front of Daniel Ricciardo now with a little bit over 10 laps to go in this GP, and just hoping we can maintain. I know Ricciardo's been faster than me all season, but I said just get me in front of Daniel Ricciardo, and I think I can manage the gap, or at least keep him behind me there. As you can see, I was dealing with a little bit of oversteer here, and now as you can come through to lap 25, the gap 1.3 seconds between myself and Ricciardo. I'm nearly going to the barrier there as we continue to deal with some oversteer here and there. A big loss of momentum when that one happened, and the gap now down to less than a second between myself and Ricciardo, 0.8 of a second, but then I would actually be able to keep the gap stable from this point on. I kept it about 8 to 9 of a second.
Panic just yet, but we've seen a problem at our end. We're looking into it.
Jeff, are you kidding me? It's 10 laps to go. I'm finally in front of Daniel Ricciardo, and better yet, in my home GP here in Canada, needing to try and keep this championship alive by beating Ricciardo for once, and suddenly Jeff tells us that there's a potential issue on the way. This would be a terrible, terrible way to end our Canadian GP. It tells us over the radio the rain is getting worse. The rain, you can see the conditions are not improving by any means, but there it goes. The gearbox has failed here in the Canadian GP, and we are going to retire in our home GP, finally leading it for the first time in our career, and finally in a crucial moment getting ahead of Daniel Ricciardo to beat him potentially in this race to close up this World Championship. It's going to come to a heartbreaking finish here in the Canadian GP in Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. I cannot believe this.
That's it then for another magnificent Canadian Grand Prix, and they've hung on to take a sublime victory here today. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
Well, I honestly feel it was down to the driver and car today. I mean, we can talk driver skill all day, but if you don't have a solid team to back that, you're never going to get anywhere. When you hit that sweet spot of having both an excellent driver and an incredible car, that's when you see results like those we witnessed today.
Our winning drivers are on their way to the podium right now. It's been a fantastic race for McLaren, that's for sure, and no doubt they'll be celebrating tonight.
Absolutely heartbreaking way to end this Canadian GP here now, as we were in position to potentially win our home GP and, of course, like I said, most importantly, beat our teammate of Daniel Ricciardo. Well, Ricciardo continues the streak of every race he's finished, he's won. And he's DNF'd the other two. So we look at the standings before we end this episode there, and you can see we're at 69 points, and Ricciardo now is 103. So we're over 30 points out just because of this one failure. Coming into this race, we were not even, I don't think, 10 points out. We were only like 8 points behind. Fortunately, McLaren does lead the constructors, but wow. We finally did what we needed to do. We had a big curveball thrown at us earlier in the episode starting at the back of the grid, but we pounced on an opportunity, took advantage, and unfortunately even that wasn't enough to dethrone Daniel Ricciardo. In the next episode, we head to, I think, one of the biggest curveball races of the season in the Austrian GP. I expect 100% multiple safety cars there, so that'll be an interesting one for the first one of the season as well, probably for the safety cars. But that does it for me. I'll see you guys in the next one in Austria, where hopefully we turn it around. Have a great day, everybody.